Colorado is obviously an unbelievable experience for you, and as I've sort of gone back and looked at the whole totality of your career and your life and all of the ups and downs that you've been through, I kind of keep coming back to the fact that you were named a head coach at the age of 33, I think, when you actually
33 when I got the job, yep.
34 when the season began. And as impressive as that was, and of course you're going to say yes when you're getting that opportunity, it strikes me that it was probably too soon. That maybe some of the mistakes that followed wouldn't have happened if you had more seasoning. Am I overly simplistic?
Yeah, you know, that's a theory, and certainly I had to learn a lot of lessons. I tell you what happens when you're 33, especially when you get a coveted job like the Colorado job. There's some peers that don't quite like that, because there's a lot of guys who cut their teeth in this industry that deserve opportunities to become head coaches that never get their opportunity. You know, life isn't fair. And because they're not at the right place at the right time, they don't get those chances. So when a 33-year-old guy gets the chance and acts brash like I acted, you know, and because I didn't want anybody to think I was afraid. I wanted to be respectful, but I didn't want anybody to think I was afraid of lining up against the likes of, you know, all the coaches that were in the Big Eight at the time and so forth. So you draw their scorn a little bit, and in so doing, you become a little bit of a target, not just from the coaching industry, but also from the media. They're going to go, you know, when you send players into the creek, you know, and we're all going to have fun tubing. Yeah, that looks good until you fumble. Then all of a sudden you can hear the crowd saying, "You shouldn't have gone tubing, Neuheisel," as if there's a corollary there. But
where at first that's the reason why you were winning, right? Because you weren't.
Yeah,
McCartney was loose, and it was a player's guy, and all that was great.
One thing I know is that whoever's the next coach is 100% the antithesis of whoever was the coach before. It doesn't matter. You fill in the names; they just are, and so that's just the game we play. And I wished I'd have known that. I wished I had a guy that was telling me this was going to happen, because it repeats itself. But I didn't. But you know, I have a few regrets. But you know, I did everything that I thought was right at the time. And one thing I do know is we cared a great deal about our players, and our players enjoyed the experience. And I have zero regrets about that.
I'm curious what you think about this whole topic of player discipline. It's a hot topic right now in college football. Obviously, you know, the big example right now is Aaron Hernandez, and what Urban Meyer went through both at Florida and now at Ohio State. You went through this at Colorado. You went through this at Washington, where you had players get into some trouble, and you thought that maybe you were being too lax on them, or you said you were being too lax in certain instances. But I think it sort of goes to the question of what is the head coach's responsibility, because you can have a bunch of choir boys, Rick, you know that, but if you ain't winning games, you will not have that job.
It's a very fine line, and in a perfect world, discipline would be there for the players, so that the players would understand what accountability means and what will be tolerated and what won't be. And I think everybody has a sense and a set of rules that keep that in mind. But what discipline from the outside looking in is, it's the protection for the head coach. The great example of that was Jeremy Stevens, who was my tight end at Washington and eventually a first-round draft choice. He'd gotten in some trouble in a car where he ran into a nursing home and didn't get a DUI, but got a reckless driving deal and
left the scene.
Right? And he needed to be suspended. And he had community services associated with his deal with the police. And I gave him the chance to win half his game back in the opener against Michigan if he got all of it done before the season. And looking back, it was a mistake. I didn't send the right message to Jeremy Stevens. I didn't send the right message to the University of Washington football team. And that's why just recently, Steve Sarkisian had a similar circumstance with his great tight end, Austin Seferian-Jenkins. And I took Sark aside. I told him, this, if it were me, now you're going to do what you do. And ultimately, Sark did suspend him for the game. And I've congratulated him on the air, because Steve Sarkisian isn't 40 years old yet. I was once that coach, and I wish somebody would have taken me aside and you need to do this, because he's going to be 50 one day and hopefully still in the profession. He's a brilliant young coach, but to protect him, he needs to do it as much as to send the right message to his football team.
It's himself, it's his team, it's his program, it's his university.
No question
I mean,
about it.
sometimes
And
it's
again,
a lot swirling
yeah.
in these situations.
And again, I didn't have that guy looking over my shoulder telling me, "Hey, you need to do this." So you learn. You
you live and you learn.